Thank you very much for attending our special noodle class today. And my name is Akira, and this is making me my colleague, and we are making high hydration ramen noodles today. And we're very excited about it because it's not just high hydration noodles, but like ramen noodles, but like there are many variations to that, and the ones we are making are high hydration noodles. That are like kind of handmade version of them, and then so that's going to be a bit different from like what we are talking about before. So let's dive into it. And yeah, so today we are going to have like some like kitchen session as well, and as well as noodle making session on our beloved bando taro machine. Like that's soba noodle making machine. So first, like I'm just gonna talk about briefly this like whiteboard, and then Megumi is gonna make high hydration ratio ramen noodles from scratch on the taro machine, and later after that, like we're gonna move to our kitchen, and we're going to show you guys how to cook high hydration noodles. Like we're gonna call it like HH ramen noodles, right? High hydration ratio. Okay. And then our instructor is gonna show you guys just an example of HH ramen noodle dish. So let's talk about first, hydration ramen HH ramen noodles. Um, so we have this, like chart, like we've been using that for like in the previous classes, and like you some of you are like already familiar with this chart, but let me just briefly explain like how it works, right? So x-axis is hydration ratio, and towards the right, the higher hydration, so that means like it's gonna be noodle texture is gonna be softer, towards to the right, and the vertical axis, that's protein content of the flour that's used to make these noodles. So the high up there, like the harder, right? So this is this small circle. That's Hakata style, like it's tonkotsu noodles. Like so, it has low hydration, almost like 25%, and high protein. So like that's like 12%, like 13%. Like so that's it's really hard. And but that noodle size, right? That's like thinner, thicker, right? So like it's very thin. So it's thin and hard noodle. And HGH ramen noodle, like we are talking about today, is like kind of have like really big circle. Like so, there are many variations. So tsukeme is like probably included in this. Someone tsukeme, right? Maybe like included in this circle. But we're talking about HH ramen noodles by hand. So that's close, like really high in hydration, like kind of between like almost like 45 and like 50. But like some of them maybe like around like 40%, but still high in hydration. So that's really soft and chewy, noodle texture. And for the noodle size, right? There are many variations, like very relatively thin, 1.3 millimeter to maybe like 2.5, like 3 millimeter even. And we have well, these type of noodles are kind of actually all this kind of forms of ramen noodles, and we have because we got like we started like first ramen noodles like was started being served like around like 150 years ago, and that was introduced from was like kind of some form of like noodle soup dish like from China, right? And so back then, like we didn't have like any noodle making machines, so we had to make like people had to make like noodles by hand, right? So there's a limit to how hard the noodle be for our human beings to be able to like process that noodles, right? So hydration, like so we couldn't make such noodles as Hakata style tonkotsu noodle, like it's really hard by hand, right? So high hydration HH regional ramen noodles. These noodles are kind of ramen noodles that are like kind of we start seeing like from the beginning of introduction of like ramen noodles to Japan, and so there are four famous HH regional ramen noodles, and one of them is like Yonezawa and Kitakata, Shiroka and Sano, and these are like sort of like concentrated like on northern east part of Japan, like kind of like north of Tokyo, basically. And so they kind of vary in hydration and noodle size. And but kind of interestingly, these are like all kind of curly, like curly noodles. And some of them are like kind of made on machines and like, called by machine, right? But like some of them are actually called by hand. So like each order they get, right? They probably like call it by hand, and they like cook it and then serve them. So it's kind of interesting, like how they differ, right? And so talking about ingredients, and for solid ingredients, we have like of course wheat, flour, and the protein we talked about, protein like that determines the hardness of noodles, and high hydration HH ramen noodles, because these are high hydration and maybe like around like kind of medium to like upper medium to like lower high in protein content, like so probably 9 to 11. There's a range, right? And then there's a ash content, right? The ash content, like that's the amount of minerals like contained in the wheat flour, and like less than zero point 0.4, or like maybe like a little above like 0.4%. Maybe basically the higher the percentage, the darker the color of the noodles. And viscosity value, like we talked about, the viscosity value, and that's like how elastic the noodles are going to be, like if you use this particular flour. And again, like I've talked about this like in the previous classes, but we do have this equipment that allows us to measure this particular value, right? So if you have flour you want to use for your HH ramen noodles, please send a sample to us, and then we can be happily measure it, and let you guys know the result, right? So, and of course liquid, so water, of course, right? Like this is a really high amount of water, and kansui, we talked about kansui right before, and that's 1% to the weight of flour, um, and then that's potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate combination, and water hydrogen, like that's like 40% or over, right? And so 40%, what do you mean 40% hydration, right? So like that's basically, for example, like if you have like solid ingredients like 10 kilograms, right? Then you are adding 4 kilograms of water or liquid to it. So that's what 40% hydration ratio means. And so noodle making process, like so Megumi is going to start making this type of noodles from scratch in a minute, but um, yeah, it's like when it comes to the hydration ratio, getting the hydration right is very, very important. And we talked about like in the previous classes that well, the temperature, right, like ambient temperature, like what you make noodles, kind of affects, like influences the hydration, like it conditions the dough. So basically, the higher the temperature, right, higher temperature, um, the less water, the more water you should reduce the hydration, because like when it's hot, like well, the water permeates the flour, right, like more, so you should reduce like probably 1%, 2% hydration ratio to get that kind of same dough condition. But like what is cold, right, in the winter, like right now, the like movement of the water is not like it's not as much, right? So may want to increase the amount of water by like 1 or 2% to get the same kind of quality, same condition of dough, right? So that's something you should like the higher the hydration, the more influence you may get from this temperature changes, right? Um, so when you're making ramen noodles, it's like udon noodles. It's like a well, like other types of like HH, noodles. So it's like udon, like noodles. So you want to separate your production date like into two, and day one like you just prep the dough, so the mixing like just 5 minutes, and then you do the first resting, and that's like 28 degrees at 28 degrees like for 2 hours, and that's the like optimal resting curve that like we talked about before, discussed before, and so basically, the higher the temperature, the shorter the like resting time, and you get that. So like all the benefits of resting process onto your dough, right? And after first resting, you do the pressing, right? Like you're just kind of you have to like work the dough and do the pressing, right? And second resting, after that you do the second resting, and that's 18 degrees, 18 degrees like put overnight, so basically 24 hours. So it's just like just go through the kind of same processes that you saw in the udon production. And so the next day, day two, you come in, right? And then like what you're gonna do is that like you're going to the sheet, like thin like one by one, like one chunk of dough, like one chunk of dough, and then you sheet it, and then to the final thickness, right? But the kind of rollers that are used in like udon machine and soba machine are different from ones used in a ramen machine, and what's the difference? Like that's roller diameters, and then the ones used in udon machine, just 90 millimeters, like real small diameter. Like ones used in ramen machine, like that's 210 millimeters. Like that's like more than twice as bigger, and so that they apply like a lot way bigger pressure on the dough than they would do like on the udon machine. So because it's high hydration dough, it's very soft, right? So like you want to use kind of smaller rollers to apply like right amount of pressure at a time to be able to like to get it to the final thickness without damaging the gluten. So that's the purpose. So that's why the roller size is like in terms of diameter are different from udon machine and ramen machines. And so cutting, yeah, we'll cut it, right? Cut it to the noodle strands, and for our purpose, right? And then we're gonna make them wavy. We're gonna make them curled. We are going to do it by hand or by machine, and we're gonna portion it like by weighing, by weight, right? And we're gonna either like store them away or cook them and serve them, right? So that's basically the processes. Okay, so that's it. So like let's start making HH ramen noodles, handmade version. Okay. So ingredients, and so for liquid ingredients, right? So I missed out one ingredient, that's salt from the on the whiteboard, but like this is basically the water and concentrate and salt. So these are all like these three are all like liquid ingredients, liquid, and it's the flour, right? The wheat flour for ramen. So we're going to turn these ingredients into HH ramen noodles on this machine. Yeah, so this is our standard taro machine that's designed to basically make you know soba noodle, like soba noodle, yeah, that's made with like buckwheat seeds. And so all these units of like equipment are designed to do soba noodles, but yeah, we're making ramen noodles on this machine. And so we have to dissolve like all these, you know, salt and calcium into the water, and kind of making this kind of solution, right? Like, so that's why um, they are all like liquid ingredients. So you have to remember that, like, you have to like treat the calcium and salt, the amount of calcium and salt, as percentages that you add to hydration ratios. So if like calcium and salt like was like each of them 1% to the weight of flour, weight of the solid, and you have to add like those 2% to the hydration. So adding the water, the solution, the liquid, then to the lid, and so this lid has these holes that allows this like liquid to be like dripped through and be added to the flour a little by little, and so this allows for good good hydration of the flour. Yeah, so this mixer is a bit different from other types of mixers that are used for udon and ramen noodles, and you'll see that how it's different later. But like we can't, no, we don't want to waste like you guys' time, like by just watching the mixer, right? And so so Megumi prepared this dough in advance, and yeah, she, yeah, she just ripped it. So what we're gonna do is that like we want to work this dough, right? And like it's kind of help like develop like gluten structure inside dough. And so we use this press machine. It's a press machine that like kind of mimics the kind of foot stepping on the dough, right? And so in old days, right, like people had this um, practice of like foot stepping on dough to kind of work it, right, work the dough, and so literally they like step on them and work the dough, right, and it's yeah, I mean it's for real, and but like we can, well, it's a really actually like labor intensive, like a time consuming job. So we made machine that sort of like mimics that practice, and you know so this press machine applies good pressure on the dough, right? And so working the gluten. So over here we have dough that's sort of like half mixed, and yeah, as you can see that the flour, right? Flour like kind of turn like kind of pale yellow, and that's from the potassium carbonate of the calcium. All right, so let's do a bit of more mixing. So that was third time that we did the press, right? And I think guys, I think it's time for the press, right? So she's dividing it into you know pieces like portions that are easy for her to be able like sheet it, right? Thin it to uh, yeah to do the rolling process on. Because if you have like really big piece of dough, and then you want to sheet it, right? And then like to to certain thickness, and that's going to be like really well cumbersome because like the space, right? The space is limited. The space is limited like in the work table, and as you thin the dough, um, it's going to be like really. I mean, you don't have like space, right? Like enough space to like further thin it. So that's why yeah, you should divide it, like before you even start sheeting it. All right, so, so let's start sheeting it. Yeah, as you can see, like the dough is like really pumped up, right? It's, if you push it, like trying to flatten it, like it's you don't like you just like come right back. So and so she's starting to sheet it, right? And notice like she's changing the gear, the shift of the roller to kind of like narrowing the roller gap little by little. So gradually thinning the dough. And what's interesting about this roller process compared to roller process like in the ramen machine is that like in this machine you can actually change the sheet that like direction like change the direction of like sheeting. Um, so like you can roll like the dough like in different like multiple directions. But like in the ramen machine, like you can roll dough like only one direction. So that changes like sort of like kind of structures like the dough, the gluten and like dough, say the dough, right? Dough the structures like and then like strength of the dough. And but basically like this way is is better. Sounds like strength, dough strength, and um, basically this basically noodle texture. Yeah, and you also maybe like notice like there's a red sort of like beam, like kind of red light, like kind of beaming on the dough, right? And that's detecting the thickness of the dough that's being rolled. Um, so she so she can like virtually see how thick the dough is getting, right, on the display. And so that this is like really useful feature that this machine offers, like especially like for anybody, especially for people just were starting to make noodles. So you don't have to like stop in the middle to measure the thickness with the caliper or something, but you can just see how thick the dough is. So it's a relatively thick dough, but like definitely different great size for each ramen noodles, and the thickness would be like probably between like 2 millimeter and like 2.5. And what's great about again like this machine is that like well like customers would be able to like enjoy that sort of like randomness of the noodle texture because even though like this is a machine, right? You know there may be because like there's like element of like hand making design into this machine. There's like a kind of like chance of like randomness. You know, probably like difference like discrepancy of like maybe like 0.05 or like zero point 0.1 millimeter or something in like thickness and width. So that's kind of that works as like so kind of hand making um, sort of like essence weaved into it. And so you can change the cut width, even in the middle of the cutting process. Just kind of like by kind of visually looking at how thick, how thin the noodles are coming, right? All right, so let's cut noodles and look at that noodle. Like that's really really thick and thin, and yeah, she did that on purpose. But it's like so like from just one batch, like she made like different sizes, like four sizes, like four width, different width, right? And so what what she's going to show you is that like you know you can use that press unit to actually like well make them curly. Yeah, so that's what I mean by making them curly by machine. You can make them by hand by like well squeezing them, right? But like You can make them by, I mean, curly by, pressing them, and so it's kind of interesting. Like, so you have to like dust them well because they're gonna be kind of stuck, like, one chunk of dough, right? After you press it, without dusting, so you need to dust them well, and I think like curly noodles, and especially like if you call them by hand, like call them a machine like this way, yeah, they're gonna give the customer like kind of well a noodle texture that like kind of random, and then like this randomness kind of gives the customer like kind of sense of like, oh, these noodles are like made by hand, and um, you know yeah, for some people like yeah, hand making sounds already like higher quality than machine made, right? So um, okay, so I was quite impressed, but you see that yeah, look at the curliness, right? Look at those curliness, yeah. I'm going for one more push. See how they're gonna come out, right? Yeah, I think I think it's great because if you're human beings, like making noodles by hand, and then of course like every day is different, like and how the noodles are curled would be different, right? So this process like method gives you to be able like um, well have that kind of element of hand making, even though you're making noodles by machine, on the machine. Um, it's a great way to so like kind of serve your customers handmade noodles. So like if you serve these noodles like right as one serving, right, it's kind of interesting because like there are like four different noodle sizes that kind of like mixed together, right, as one serving of fresh noodles, and they are like curled differently, right? So these are like this is like going to be like really unique, you know, um, serving of like fresh noodles at your restaurant, and because and then I'm sure like noodle texture going to be like you know distinctively unique, and it's very interesting. And yeah, and then the question is, like what kind of soup you going to couple these noodles with, right? What kind of soup like you going to serve these noodles in? Um, that's the or you could something like mazemen or tsukemen. Wow, they're beautiful. Okay, so let's go to let's take them to our kitchen and see what's happening over there. Okay, welcome to Yamato Noodle School Kitchen, and this function of pressing the noodles several times after the noodles runs is activated. Yes, so what we just did is just kind of making them curl, right? Making them curl. So like by um, but like dusting the noodles well, right? Like to keep them from sticking. And the noodles got like tremendous pressure from the press machine, right? And then like they get squashed basically, right, between the the plastic boards, right? And then so in the process, like they get curled, and yeah, so that's why we did, like, and then we did like the press like twice, right, to get them curled. So that's basically what we did, and by curling them by hand would be like, very time consuming, and take up a lot of your energy, right? So um, curling them like that way to save you time and yeah, your energy. So all right, so we have Miss Sano in our instructor, and so she's going to show us the yeah, the HHR like ramen noodle dish. So thank you. じゃあ今回テイクアウト用の、混ぜ麺とあと味噌ラーメンの2種類作っていきます。 So what we're going to make is that like we're going to make takeout for takeout, and then another like one for how much? Okay. Okay, so she just cooked the noodles like we just made, right? Yeah. So that was 6 minutes that she cooked, right? And this for takeout, and just add it to the take a bowl, right? Take out in a bowl, and so I'm gonna just top it with the cubes of like chashu pork meat and cut in cube shapes. The tomatoes like kind of cut into kind of same shape, cube shape, and everyone's favorite avocado. And all these ingredients like chopped and like cut into like kind of same size and shapes. So these are the like leeks that we use. Like we kind of like cut them in like in this sort of like special shape. Like or shiraga. Shiraga means like basically gray hair. Like yeah, because they look like them. And so yeah, so I made like a space for in the center for this egg, poached egg. So the central leaf. Central leaf, okay. That's it. And so it's a takeout dish. So and then you got a sauce for in a separate bottle. And so just gonna serve it like to customer, like, and his customer would like just add it and then start it and then eat it right before like consuming it. Okay, so that's it. Yeah, that's easy. So like each ramen, the takeout dish. So next, what I'm gonna make is miso ramen. Miso ramen, and So the noodles are used for miso ramen, like well, smaller in size, compared to the ones we just did. But like yeah,
1分20秒ぐら
and
い。
then 1 minute and 20 seconds for the cooking time.
その間にスープを沸かしてます。
Okay, so while we're doing the noodles, um, warming the soup,
輪切り唐辛子入れます。
and that's a chili, yeah, chopped like that, right? And then
で、まあ、テイクアウト用のこれ器になるんですけど、
so these are takeout container like bowl.
でこの上に麺と具材を乗せて、下がスープになります。
Okay, so that's a two-layered like container, and then like that in the top, like we put the noodles and then the toppings, and then the bottom, like we put the soup. Okay,
で、
so that's
元だれ入れます。
so that's miso motodare. Okay, that's miso motodare, and
で、こっちコンビーフで。
it's a flavored oil. Flavored oil. Okay, flavored oil, and the top and motodare in.
スープが沸くまで待ってください。
Okay, just gonna wait for the soup to be warmed, and the noodles are done, right? So remember, you have to strain them like hell to get rid of like the water as much as you can, and so put that noodles in, and
その間に麺を作ります。
okay, so while still waiting for the soup to be warmed, I'm gonna top the noodles, corn. So yeah, the shiraga leeks and tissue and flavored soft-boiled egg, and that's chopped scallions. Okay, so the soup's warm.
スープが沸いたので、
Yeah, so that's so adding the stock, right, soup to the tare and the flavor oil, and then that ladle is actually 300 cc ladle. So so she just measured 300 grams, and then
ちょっと味噌溶かしてあげます。
and then have to like dissolve the miso tare, right? Okay, and yeah, place that above it, and yeah, the lid, right? There you go with that miso ramen. Like that's for takeout.
でもこっちも作らなくて、
Yeah, and put it in the bag, this plastic bag, and yeah, that's how you yeah, how your customer like would take home.
はい、じゃあ2種類完成です。
Okay, so 2 HH ramen dishes for takeout.
はい、以上になります。
And beautiful. So thank you for watching, and that's it. That's for my part. Thank you, Miss Sano. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you guys in the next class. So, up until like, please stay safe and stay healthy. So, thank you so much. Bye bye.